Chris Clark and Brenda Blackman, weeknights at 10 on Channel 5.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. There is consumer confusion and concern tonight about the safety of the nation's citrus and grain products. Do some contain unsafe levels of EDB pesticide, a known cancer causer in test animals? Different states have come up with different answers. Scientists disagree. Tomorrow, the Environmental Protection Agency is due to deliver the federal government's answer. An answer that some say is years too late for no good reason. What others say is there's no reason to be alarmed. Our coverage begins with Terry Drinkwater in California.
As more baking products were taken off the shelves in California and in several other states today, there was mounting public concern over the dangers of EDB. Here, certain lot numbers of Betty Crocker yellow cake mix, of dromedary cornbread, and of Duncan Hines wild blueberry muffins were withdrawn from sale. State investigators found before baking they had from 370 to 5,400 parts per billion of EDB in them. California says 300 parts per billion should be the limit. After we bake them, according to directions, the manufacturer says all the products would be safe, the EDB being substantially cooked out. In supermarkets, most people we talked to were well aware of the problem.
I had some at home I threw in the trash can.
Oh.
I wouldn't use it. Why should I take a chance?
You'd like to believe that what you buy in the market is, you can have confidence in it, and God knows how much of it you've consumed already. So it is scary. I understand. You mean the EDB?
State health officials in many parts of the country report widespread confusion. There is division among scientists on how serious a threat EDB is.
I think the message has to be, don't panic, that you're not going to get cancer next week by eating some cake made from a mix.
Well, I think that in order to protect the public health, that there must be immediate action.
The EPA found that EBD fumigated citrus and grains may have caused as many as 3,000 cases of cancer per million Americans. By comparison, the Cancer Society estimates that cigarette smoking is responsible for 80,000 cases per million people. So, some scientists conclude the EDB risk is significant but not overwhelming. And what are the alternatives to EDB to kill fruit fly larvae and grain weevils? One is carbon tetrachloride, but it can also cause cancer in animals. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Here in the nation's grain belt, there is a lot of fretting over the alternatives because EDB has been the primary fumigant for corn and wheat.
Insecticide knocks out insects, it knocks out nematodes around worms, and anything that's potent against them is potent against us.
The risk is in the long-term contact, ingestion, inhalation.
So far, the EPA has only banned it for spraying on soil, not for use on grain in storage. But farmers fear that will come next, and they'll pay the price.
On the commodities exchange, the effect is a paradox. If EDB is going to wipe out a portion of the nation's corn store, supplies will go down and prices will go up.
Higher prices would seem to be good news after years of chronic surplus. But in the major farming states, there are some accusations that EDB really isn't that dangerous at all.
Mr. Ruckelshaus has had a great deal of pressure put on his back and by environmental groups.
It just doesn't seem within our thinking that it could be a possible contamination source in the food product chain from corn in the levels that have been reported.
In the meantime, farmers are faced with the rumor that they may have to destroy up to 8% of the corn they now have stored.
That's a lot of bins of grain, I think, when you spread that all over the country.
And if they have to foot the bill for that, some of them are threatening to sue the government. Ned Potter, CBS News, Chicago.
Ethylene dibromide. This batch of EDB was fixed this morning in Montemorelos, Mexico. It was being used on these oranges headed to the United States. For at least 15 years, EDB has been used in Mexico under the direction of the United States Department of Agriculture. The American government hires the inspectors. An American manufacturer provides the chemical. And consumers all over the U.S. eat the oranges.
Han hablado de aquí a la empacadora de California, de Dallas, de Chicago, ¿verdad?
Senor Martinez says there's a big demand for his Mexican oranges. He gets calls from California, Dallas, and Chicago. Mexican growers and packers say they are just following guidelines set down by the American government. And until this government says otherwise, loads of EDB oranges will continue to come into the U.S. Carlos Aguilar, CBS News, Montemorelos, Mexico.
EPA Administrator Ruckelshaus was raked over the coals today on another score. Acid rain pollution in the Northeast that is believed to result from industries burning high sulfur content coal in the Midwest. Some of the strongest roasting of the EPA chief at a congressional hearing today came from Republican Senator Robert Stafford of Vermont. Stafford said he was disappointed in Ruckelshaus and that the new Reagan budget that calls for more acid rain research, said Stafford, could be seen as, quote, an excuse not to take action. The response from Ruckelshaus, quote, the problem is these scientific studies take a frustratingly long time.
Great game. Let's dig in.
Where's the A1 for hamburgers?
Yeah, A1.
Miss, A1 steak sauce, please. Imagine a great place like this and no A1.
You need it to make steak burgers.
Sure do. What is hamburger? Chopped ham? It's chopped steak. And A1 has herbs and spices created for steak. It makes hamburgers taste like steak burgers.
I make steak burgers at home because they're juicy and tasty.
Why settle for less when we eat out?
Team, go for it.
Miss, A1, please.
A1 makes hamburgers taste like steak burgers.
Ask for A1 at your favorite restaurant.
Who makes the best-selling radials in America? Goodyear. We outsell all foreign radials combined. One reason, the Goodyear Arriva. It gives you long tread life. And best of all season traction in the wet stuff and the white stuff. The Goodyear all-season Arriva. It's one reason Goodyear is the leader in radials. No foreign maker of radials even comes close. Goodyear, #1 in radials.
The partisan one-upmanship over how to bring down the federal budget deficit got even more uppity today. And as White House correspondent Leslie Stahl reports, one of the people bidding against the president's no new tax stand was once again the chairman of his own Council of Economic Advisors, Martin Feldstein.
President Reagan's prescription for the bruising Republicans are taking over his gigantic deficits: take the offensive against the Democrats. That's what he told a rally of congressional Republicans.
We must make it clear that they don't want to cut spending, they want to raise taxes.
But the president's chief economic advisor, Martin Feldstein, also sees a need to raise taxes. And today didn't make the president's job any easier when he seemed to criticize the president's new budget.
The budget is not what we want to see happen in 1985. We're going to have additional tax revenue. We're going to have to trim back on the size of the defense authorizations, and we're going to have domestic spending cuts.
He said the White House is now willing to accept cuts in the military budget, even though Defense Secretary Weinberger insisted again at a congressional hearing that his entire budget is necessary.
To bring in to the Congress of the United States a military budget of $305 billion at a time when we're being asked to cut social programs is, in my estimation, a level of obscenity that's extraordinarily difficult to understand.
This is the first time I've been labeled a public pornographer, and the level of obscenity contained in our budget, I think, is extremely low.
In another hearing, Budget Director Stockman was particularly candid about the deficits, saying we are in the same position that a company is on the eve of filing Chapter 11. The president issued his annual economic report to Congress today, in which he promised to issue a plan after the election to further cut domestic spending. No details. It was the Democrats who took the offensive.
It's another big secret plan. It's not going to come out until after the election. How cynical can you get, and how much confidence and trust in leadership does that engender when we take that attitude?
So both sides whooped and hollered and railed and carried on about taxes and deficits, but no real shots were fired. In fact, the two sides agreed to meet on Wednesday to discuss ways to negotiate deficit reductions. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
What could be a more threatening combination for a town that survived an earthquake and sub-zero temperatures? Bob McNamara reports an even greater threat today: warm weather and a cold shoulder.
It's becoming Salmon, Idaho's most frightening thaw.
There was a bank of water moving across the field there, about 4 feet high. It was something to make a guy want to start running when he sees it coming.
Down through the canyons and ranchland, the Salmon River has pushed itself into a 26-mile-long ice jam. And worse now, the Lemhi River, steaming into the icebound salmon, has had almost nowhere to flow but into the homes and streets of Salmon, Idaho. Last week, more than 350 people were driven from their homes when the icy Lemhi spilled into parts of Salmon. The town had to come to its own rescue.
What they done, they've waded this water and got soaking wet in 25 below zero weather and helping everybody they could.
For a little town of 3,500, it was a big disaster, but volunteers were everywhere.
There were people standing right next to the search and rescue men saying, "We have a house for you, we have a bed for you, here's some food."
Today, though sub-zero cold has eased the Salmon and Lemhi rivers back to the town's edge, there's a race on against a second thaw, another flood threatening to be worse than the first. And Terry Turner trying to rescue his grandmother and uncle's truck. What makes him and others mad is that no state or federal disaster dollars have been offered flood victims.
I think they at least deserve a roof over their head. Some help fixing it if it's fixable. Something. They haven't said a thing.
The state's problem is Idaho's disaster fund was emptied last October when the state was rocked by an earthquake. And city officials worry their disaster may be overlooked by Washington because as disasters go, this one might be viewed as small potatoes.
I would think that for a town of 3,000, when anything hits $2 million and you've got a 12% unemployment rate, that is a national disaster.
With almost no money of its own to build dikes against a threatening second flood, Salmon, Idaho mostly hopes when the thaw comes again that it's warm enough to break the ice jam on the salmon, but not too warm, that a disaster worse than the last one ravages the town. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Salmon, Idaho.
A Mobile, Alabama judge today overruled his jury and sentenced a Ku Klux Klansman to death for killing a black man and hanging the body from a tree. A jury earlier had convicted 29-year-old Henry Francis Hayes for the 1981 slaying of Michael Donald, who was 19. Hayes allegedly wanted to show Klan strength in Alabama. The jury had recommended life in prison without parole. The judge's death sentence will be automatically appealed. A New York State Supreme Court justice today ruled an 85-year-old man who stopped eating in December in despair over his poor health has a right to starve himself to death. The judge said the unidentified man, who is in a Syracuse nursing home, should not be force-fed against his will. The ruling came after the man's doctor testified the patient was competent when he decided on December 20th to stop eating. He has been subsisting on liquids. The patient's daughter testified her father is a man of strong will, a retired electrical engineer and college president who has represented this country on technological matters in India and France.
Waiting here long?
Very unoriginal.
Your legs must be fatigued.
Pooped out.
Let me introduce myself. I'm new Legs Active Support Pantyhose with two-step support.
That's original.
I put effective support here and here, where legs can tire most. That's 2 steps to help prevent pooped out legs.
Ooh, and comfy. See ya.
New Legs Active Support. 2 giant steps for tired leg kind.
Waiting here long?
What I tell my friends is, I buy Stouffer's Lean Cuisine because it's always less than 300 calories. And it's low in fat. And it makes it easy to watch your weight. And it's a very good idea to eat light. But I have to confess, that's not really why I buy it. I buy it for the taste.
Lean Cuisine entrees from Stouffer's. It's not just the calories that count, it's the taste.
The Senate voted overwhelmingly today for what is advertised as a major crime control bill, a bill that, among other things, would do this: deny bail to dangerous federal defendants, eliminate early parole, limit use of the insanity defense, make sentences more uniform for the same types of crimes. The bill now goes to the House, where a key member of the Judiciary Committee called the legislative package, quote, dead on arrival. A first-time ruling today from the Federal Elections Commission. For the first time, third-party candidates can qualify for federal matching funds to be used in primary elections, so long as they meet the same requirements as major party candidates do. Scenic New Hampshire, seen every 4 years of the nation's first political primaries. This year, February 28th, and this year, the scene is changing. In transition from a hands-on test market of ideas to media market and supermarket, part of the nationwide mass market. Touring New Hampshire is a lot like thumbing through an old family album. Life seems simpler here, from the postcard villages to the quaint schoolhouses. The hurly-burly of living seems very far away. A popular saying goes, New Hampshire is what America was. For years, politicians and journalists believed that. Got a campaign here up close, in the flesh. It's comparison shopping at the general store. But this year, there are signs that, like the Sears Roebuck catalog and the hand-crank telephone, New Hampshire's old political ways have changed.
Good to see you. How are you?
I'm good.
Need your help in the primary.
Gary Hart calls himself the candidate with new ideas, but he's running the classic old New Hampshire grassroots campaign. He's already been in and out of the state for a year, introducing himself personally to as many voters as possible.
Gary Hart, good to see you.
Helping voters comparison shop at the general store.
I can know where you stand on gun control. Okay. I have not voted for federal gun control.
I think the person-to-person contact is what makes the difference in New Hampshire. I think that's part of what makes people get involved and what makes it interesting.
There's a certain quaintness about retail politics that isn't seen everywhere else. And it's one of the things that brings candidates here, particularly candidates who are not well funded and who are not well known.
Martin Gross is a Concord attorney.
There's a real question now whether that is still the truth in New Hampshire.
Very nice architecture up there.
Even Gary Hart's most traditional supporters admit his recent momentum here is due as much to his good showing in the big televised debate at Dartmouth as to his one-on-one campaigning.
You look like you do on television.
Oh, well.
I was impressed with your oratory on the political debate and everything.
Still, Hart's personalized campaigning made a difference to Steve Rudman.
I think of the major candidates, the candidates that I thought were the major candidates, John Glenn was consistently absent. And I thought that his not coming here was just, it was more than just ignoring New Hampshire, but it showed me a lack of political acumen and lack of sophistication, and I began to look elsewhere.
Doctor, what about the theory that New Hampshire is really different to this extent? That it's somewhat isolated, somewhat insular, that New Hampshire is a kind of throwback to what politics was in the 1910, 1920 eras?
Well, I think it's a difficult question to answer. I don't think that we're a throwback any longer. I think that the Yankee virtues of, taking a good look at the man or woman running and the common sense and the hard work attitudes that we have are mirrored around the rest of the country.
Media ads, national news, and so on are very important factors and probably the decisive factors in the campaigns, and not so much the one-on-one campaigning.
The signs are everywhere that Glenn decided to do some old-fashioned campaigning here, but to concentrate his money and his hopes on a modern television campaign 84.
When was the last time a leader set lofty goals and challenged us to reach for them? That's John Glenn.
The belief in the power of television is so strong that the Glenn campaign even replays its own political ads before the candidate gives a speech.
If Arkansas voted on February 28th, what happened in Arkansas what campaigns did in Arkansas would not be much different than what campaigns are doing in New Hampshire.
We get our information the same way everybody else does, through national television. We watch CBS News and all of the other networks, and that's how we know what's going on, and therefore our opinion formation is identical, essentially, to people throughout the country.
The old idea that New Hampshire is somehow a unique little political laboratory is fading. It's not just a case of Gary Hart's shoestring operation versus John Glenn's more modern heavy media campaign. It's more complicated than that, because many of the same political factors that are at work elsewhere in the country now are at work here. I'll be back with more news in a minute.
Whirlpool announces two beautiful new home appliance features. The elegant look of platinum, the warm look of toast. Two beautiful new colors, platinum and toast. Now are no fingerprint refrigerators, easy to clean ranges, energy efficient dishwashers,
Even our solid-state washers and dryers come in beautiful new platinum and toast. Best of all, they come with the Whirlpool promise to give you your money's worth and help make your world a little easier.
Most people who use Black & Decker power tools on weekends probably don't know why they keep on going strong year in, year out. But the pro who's got to drill a 3-inch hole in solid concrete with a Black & Decker rotary hammer, he knows why. He knows that like everything Black & Decker makes, his rotary hammer is built tough and reliable and strong. In other words, it's built like a Black & Decker.
Very heavy fighting raged all around the U.S. Marine base at Beirut's airport today, but in this round of violence, the Americans were only spectators. The Lebanese army, however, suffered a major loss at a key southern entrance to Beirut. Shiite Muslim militiamen overran army positions at checkpoints that had controlled access to southern suburbs, strongholds of rebels battling the government. It was the first ground assault since Christmas. While this was going on, the army and Syrian-backed Druze rebels battled with artillery. At one point, shells reported landing every 15 seconds. Shell fire hit the Lebanese presidential palace and shattered windows in the nearby U.S. ambassador's residence. No injuries reported in either place. In his commentary tonight, Bill Moyers takes a look at U.S. military aid to one Central American country, aid for which the price tag may be far greater than just the dollars involved.
The president speaks often these days of American values, of our country standing tall again. He obviously means it. But imagine what good might come if this veneration of our values at home were applied consistently abroad. For instance, this week we learned that the Reagan administration is selling spare military parts to the government of Guatemala, $2 million worth. That's not a big deal as arms sales go, but think about it for a moment. Amnesty International says the government of Guatemala is one of the most notorious violators of human rights in the world. Its brutal behavior toward its own people was recently deplored by the Kissinger Commission, which Mr. Reagan had appointed. That report accused Guatemala's security forces in the cities of murdering people only suspected of dissent. Just last fall, Congress voted to cut off nearly all aid to the country after 3 Guatemalan teachers were murdered while working for a project financed with American funds. Yet the military dictator of the country reportedly has a close relationship to the Reagan administration, so the White House has maneuvered to get around the congressional ban. The word got out just as Secretary of State Schultz arrived in nearby El Salvador. He warned the government there that it risks the loss of American aid unless it controls the death squads. How seriously will that warning be taken now that the Salvadorians see Guatemala getting help from the U.S. despite gross transgression of human rights? Supposedly, the administration fears that some 2,500 rebels in the Guatemalan jungle are a threat to U.S. interests. But what about the threat to our values of winking at right-wing terror in Guatemala after deploring left-wing terror in Grenada? There's something awkward about trying to stand tall while bound down to a double standard.
Right now, when you buy certain Teed attic insulation, you'll get more than high-quality, energy-saving fiberglass. You'll also get a $1 rebate. In fact, you'll get $1 back for each of the first 40 rolls of certain Teed R19 you buy. Of course, an offer this good can't last forever, so look for the Certain Teed Buck-a-Bundle rebate display at participating dealers now. You'll save money, saving energy.
Hey, what's with the sourpuss?
My dentures. I hate the taste after soaking. That tablet taste.
Sourpuss? Meet Denture Gel.
Introducing new Denture Gel, the first gel toothpaste just for dentures. Powerful stain-removing cleaners plus mouthwash ingredients leave dentures clean with a minty freshness you can taste.
My dentures do taste minty fresh. New Denture Gel sure beats tablet taste.
And that sourpuss.
If you're pouring Kellogg's Corn Flakes, you've earned a special place on the front of America's favorite cereal. Sit down to a familiar face, the face of a Kellogg Corn Flake lover, the face of America too. When you sit down to America's favorite cereal, the face on the package is you. So sit down to a
large part of the world's population, this is day one of the year 4682. It is Tet, the Asian New Year, the year of the rat this time, and it was celebrated in China today with traditional fervor. The rat is the first creature in the Chinese zodiac, according to legend, achieving that position by being the first animal to reach Buddha's deathbed. The year of the rat is expected to bring good tidings. It also is considered an auspicious time for births. But at this point, legend clashes with reality. For China, with almost 1,060,000,000 people, more births are not the goal, as David Jackson reports from Peking.
The sheer mass of its more than 1 billion people strains the country's ability to provide even adequate food and housing for all, let alone develop much-needed industries. So this is a sign of the times. One family, one child. Parents who are limited to just one seem to dote on theirs. Children get the best and the brightest clothes, every toy the family can afford, even ice cream in winter. The State Family Planning Commission has a system of incentives for one-child families. There are bonuses and priorities in education. It also has a system of disincentives. And penalties can be harsh. Mandatory sterilization after the second child, forced late-term abortions. It is the rural areas that most concern China's family planners. 80% of the people live in the countryside, where there's a tradition of large families. Extra children mean extra help in the field and extra old age security for their parents. Traditions that are hard to break.
Travelers returning from the countryside say some women pregnant with their second, third, or even fourth child go into hiding. They never see doctors. The births go unreported.
This nation is home to a quarter of the world's population. The people are China's greatest asset, and perhaps its greatest liability. David Jackson, CBS News, Peking.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Thursday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Happy New Year.
I need my cough medicine.
Introducing new contact cough capsules.
A cough capsule?
Seems it's an idea some people have a hard time getting used to.
Contact cough capsules?
It's hard to believe that all the power of liquid cough medicines is concentrated in that one little capsule. So concentrated, it's all you need to relieve your cough for hours. New contact cough capsules, the first real improvement since the spoon.
They're good. Our trucks drive anywhere.
But managing money drives us crazy.
A lot of businesses are good at making money, but not that good at managing it. So at Money, M-O-N-Y, we help you plan the pension, group, and individual insurance programs you and your company need. I make great chocolate chips, but when it comes to managing money, I'm no smart cookie.
Money helps you manage money, so your money will do as well as you do.
This is the moment, time to be strong. You're trying so hard, giving your all. It won't be long. This is the moment. Forget about the yesterdays. This is the best of life. You can have it, the best of life. You can do it, and we'd like to have
Visa.
This is CBS.
In our news tonight, approval of a larger than expected pay raise for teachers and state employees clears the House Finance Committee. And those who run the municipal auditorium are concerned that a proposed amusement tax could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And Metro Police tell us they seized a record amount of drugs last year. We'll have details on those stories and a lot more coming up next on Eyewitness News.
In mileage tests for 3 of America's highest octane gasolines, Amoco Premium